The wallet lay in a shallow puddle on the rain-slick sidewalk, black leather shining under the washed-out morning light. Emma Carter almost missed it entirely. Her thoughts were wrapped around the 3 job rejections that had hit her inbox that week, and the stack of unpaid bills waiting at her apartment. At 21, Emma already carried more weight than many people twice her age. Her faded jeans and twice-mended coat marked her as someone who knew exactly how much bus fare across town cost, and how to stretch a pack of ramen into 2 meals. She stopped, bent down and picked up the wallet, glancing around. The Monday morning Manhattan crowd streamed past with that relentless New York urgency that made stopping feel like a crime. No one was scanning the sidewalk. No one looked panicked. The rain began to fall harder. Emma tucked the wallet inside her jacket and ducked under the awning of a nearby coffee shop. Shielded from the downpour, she opened the leather bifold carefully. The quality hit her first. Not cheap department store leather, but the kind of handcrafted, butter-soft piece that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Inside, a driver's license showed a stern man with intense gray eyes and dark hair just beginning to silver at the temples. Name Alexander Reed. Address. A penthouse in one of those glittering downtown towers Emma had only ever seen from the street. Behind the license sat a platinum credit card. Behind that, cash. A lot of cash. Her fingers trembled as she counted. 20 crisp $100 bills. $2,000. $2,000 that could catch her up on rent, fill her cupboards for months, chip away at her mother's medical bills back in Ohio. No one would know. Emma shoved the thought away, ashamed it had even surfaced. Her mother hadn't worked double shifts as a nurse's aide until her health broke just to raise a thief. She'd always said character was who you were when no one was watching. Emma slipped the money back in, closed the wallet, and pulled out her phone secondhand, screen cracked in a spiderweb pattern. A quick search for Alexander Reed, New York, flooded the screen with results. License photo. Alexander stared back from Forbes profiles and business articles. Alexander Reed, 42. CEO, Reed Innovations. Estimated net worth, $4.3 billion. Emma nearly dropped the phone. The man could probably lose $2,000 a day and never feel it. But that wasn't the point. It wasn't about what he could afford to lose. It was about who she refused to become. The address on his license matched the corporate address for Reed Innovations, 3 blocks away. She checked the time. An hour until her job interview at the Bluebird Diner. Her 4th interview in a week, and maybe her last shot before next month's rent came due. She could make a detour. The Reed Innovations building stabbed at the clouds, all glass and brushed steel. Emma's worn sneakers squeaked on the polished marble lobby floor as she approached a sleek reception desk manned by 2 immaculate women who looked pulled from a fashion spread. "Can I help you?" the blonde receptionist asked, smile polite but cool as her gaze flicked over Emma's clothes. "I found this wallet," Emma said, pulling it from her jacket. "The ID says it belongs to Alexander Reed. I wanted to return it." The woman's perfectly arched brows rose. "Mr. Reed's wallet?" She reached for it. Emma hesitated. "Could I return it to him personally?" Emma asked. "Just to be sure it gets back to him safely." The receptionist exchanged a look with her colleague, amusement barely concealed. "Mr. Reed is an extremely busy man. He doesn't meet with people without appointments. Especially not." Her eyes skimmed Emma's scuffed shoes and fraying coat. "Especially not people like me," Emma finished, heat creeping up her neck. "I understand. It's just, there's $2,000 in here, and I'd like Mr. Reed to know it's all still there." The second receptionist, who'd been listening, quietly picked up the phone. She murmured into the receiver, gaze never leaving Emma's face. After a moment she hung up, looking faintly surprised. "Take the elevator to the top floor," she said. "Miss Winters, Mr. Reed's assistant, will meet you there." Emma's heart thudded as the elevator climbed. 4550, 5560. When the doors opened, she stepped into a quiet, elegant reception area. A sharp-featured woman in a tailored suit stood waiting, posture perfect, hands clasped. "I'm Patricia Winters, Mr. Reed's executive assistant," she said. "You found his wallet?" Her tone was courteous but wary, as if people routinely tried elaborate tricks to get near her boss. "Yes. On the sidewalk a few blocks away." Emma handed it over, oddly reluctant to let it go. "Everything's still inside." Patricia opened the wallet and checked the contents methodically. $2,000 cash. Cards. ID. All present. Her eyes lifted to Emma. Not everyone would have returned this intact. If at all. It was the right thing to do, Emma said. Patricia studied her for a moment. What's your name? Emma. Emma Carter. And what do you do, Miss Carter? Right now. Emma shifted, uncomfortable. I'm between jobs. I, have an interview in about 30 minutes, so I should. Wait here, please. Patricia disappeared through a pair of imposing double doors, taking the wallet with her. Emma stood alone amid expensive furnishings and artwork that probably cost more than she'd earn in a decade. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Anxiety about her diner interview gnawed at her. She was just about to give up and leave when the doors opened again. Mr. Reed would like to thank you personally, Patricia said. She gestured toward the office beyond. Emma took a deep breath and stepped through. The office was the largest she'd ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the far wall, Manhattan spread below, rain streaking the glass. At a massive darkwood desk sat Alexander Reed. In person, he was even more imposing than his photo, tall, broad-shouldered, the same stern mouth and piercing gray eyes. As she entered, he stood. The air in the room seemed to shift around him. Miss Carter. His voice was low and even, the voice of someone accustomed to instant attention. I understand I have you to thank for the return of my wallet. The wallet lay open on his desk, the cash fanned out beside it. Anyone would have done the same, Emma said. Though they both knew that wasn't true. I very much doubt that. His gaze was coolly assessing, like he was solving a problem. Most people who found a wallet with this much cash and a billionaire's ID would have considered it their lucky day. Emma lifted her chin. I'm not most people, Mr. Reed. For the first time, the faintest hint of a smile touched his mouth. No, he agreed. I don't believe you are. He gestured to the chair opposite him. Please sit. I'd like to speak with you. Emma glanced at the time on her phone. I appreciate that, Mr. Reed, but I have a job interview across town in 20 minutes, and I really can't afford to miss it. Something flickered across his face, surprise perhaps, that anyone would refuse his invitation. I see, he said. Where is this interview? The Bluebird Diner. On 28th. Waitress position. Reed pressed a button on his desk intercom. Patricia, call the Bluebird Diner on 28th. Inform them Miss Carter is delayed due to a meeting with me and ask them to reschedule her interview for later today. He looked back at Emma. Will that suffice? Before Emma could respond, Patricia's voice came through the speaker. Yes, Mr. Reed. Emma shifted in her chair, uneasy at having her day rearranged without her input. She wasn't used to anyone exerting that kind of power over her life. Certainly not a stranger. You're very confident they'll agree, she observed. People generally do, he said, expression unreadable. He leaned back, studying her again. Tell me about yourself, Miss Carter. There's not much to tell. Her hands twisted in her lap. I'm from a small town in Ohio. Moved to New York almost a year ago. Family. My mother. She's still in Ohio. She was a nurse's aide until she got sick. She didn't mention how her mother's illness had drained their savings, or how Emma had dropped out of community college to work full-time. He didn't need her life story. She just wanted to leave with her conscience clear. And what brought you to New York? He asked. It's an expensive city for someone without connections or a degree. The bluntness stung, though he didn't seem to mean it cruelly. It was just fact. I wanted to be a photographer, she admitted. My high school art teacher said I had an eye for composition. Genuine interest flickered in his eyes. Photography? Do you have a portfolio? Emma gave a soft, rueful laugh. Not anymore. I sold my camera 6 months ago to help with rent. Now I just use my phone, when I can see past the cracks. His eyes narrowed slightly at that, and Emma instantly regretted the comment. The last thing she wanted was his pity. Mr. Reed, she said, straightening. I appreciate you wanting to thank me, but returning your wallet was simply the right thing to do. I don't expect anything for it. And that, he said, leaning forward, is precisely why I find you so interesting. He rose and walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back as he looked out over the rain-drenched city. Do you know what I've learned in 20 years of business, Miss Carter? She shook her head, though he wasn't watching. That most people have a price. That integrity is often situational. He turned back to her. Yet here you are, clearly in financial need, returning a wallet containing enough cash to solve your immediate problems, expecting nothing. His gaze was so direct she had to fight the urge to look away. As I said, she answered quietly, my mother raised me to do the right thing. Your mother sounds like a remarkable woman. She is. Silence settled, filled only by rain tapping at the windows. Emma became painfully aware of how out of place she was. A broke girl in a borrowed office 60 stories up, facing a man whose watch probably cost more than she'd make in a year. Reed seemed to reach a conclusion. He returned to his desk. Miss Carter, I'd like to offer you a job. Emma blinked. A job? Doing what? I need a personal assistant. Someone honest. Someone whose integrity isn't dependent on circumstance. He nodded toward the open wallet. You've demonstrated those qualities quite convincingly. Emma frowned. With respect, Mr. Reed, I'm not qualified to be anyone's assistant, much less yours. I didn't even finish my associate's degree. Credentials can be acquired, he said evenly. Character cannot. He slid a piece of paper toward her. The position pays $90,000 a year to start. Benefits. Performance bonuses. Patricia will train you. $90,000. The number knocked the breath from her. It was more than she'd ever imagined earning. More than enough to get her mother better care. To finally stop living one bill away from disaster. And yet, why me? She asked. There must be hundreds of applicants with the right experience. Why offer this to a stranger who happened to find your wallet? A faint smile tugged at his mouth. Perhaps I trust my instincts. They've served me well. This feels too good to be true, Emma said bluntly. I can't help wondering if there's more to it than you're saying. For the first time, he looked genuinely surprised, and faintly amused. Most people would have accepted immediately. I've already established I'm not most people, she replied, surprising herself with her own steadiness. He laughed, a real laugh that briefly softened his severe features. Indeed you have, Miss Carter. He studied her a moment longer. What if I told you the wallet wasn't lost by accident? Her brow furrowed. What do you mean? I mean, what if leaving it was a test? One that dozens of people failed before you. The words sank in slowly. You're saying you deliberately put your wallet on the sidewalk with $2,000 in it just to see what people would do? He nodded, expression calm again. I've been disappointed by people I trusted recently. I wanted to see if honesty still existed in this city. That's... Emma struggled for a word. That's manipulative. I prefer instructive, Reed replied. And effective. It brought you here after all. Emma shot to her feet, anger flaring. I'm not a lab rat in one of your experiments, Mr. Reed. You didn't need to test me, or anyone else like that. She thought of the people who might have taken the cash. What about the ones who kept the money? Maybe they weren't dishonest. Maybe they were desperate. You needed the money too, he pointed out. Yet you returned it. That doesn't make me better than them, she said sharply. Just luckier. Lucky enough to be taught certain principles. She reached for her jacket. Thank you for the offer. But I don't think I'd be comfortable working for someone who tests people without their knowledge. She'd taken 2 steps toward the door when his voice stopped her. Wait. There was something different in it now, less command, more uncertainty. You're right, he said. It was manipulative. I'm used to viewing people as assets or liabilities. It's an occupational hazard. Emma turned slowly. The job offer stands, he went on. But not because you passed anything. Because you did something even more unusual than returning that wallet. His mouth curved again, genuine this time. You told a billionaire he was wrong. To his face. Emma hesitated, fingers tightening around her jacket. The practical part of her screamed to accept. Her mother's mounting medical bills, her own rent, the constant tightrope of survival. They all clamored in her head. But another part of her, the one that had come to New York with a second-hand camera and stubborn dreams, resisted. I need to think about it, she said at last. Reed nodded, and there was almost respect in his eyes. Of course. Take the day. Patricia will give you my direct number. He hesitated, then added, and regardless of your decision, I'd like to help you get back to photography. Consider it a thank you for the wallet and for your honesty. Emma stepped out of Reed Innovations in a daze, Patricia Winters's card clutched in her hand, Alexander's private number inked neatly on the back. The rain had stopped, but the city still glistened under a dull gray sky that matched his eyes. The Bluebird Diner had indeed rescheduled her interview for 10 the next morning. Apparently when Alexander Reed called, people adjusted their schedules. She walked aimlessly through the Manhattan crowd, replaying everything. $90,000 a year. Benefits. Security. Away off the constant financial edge. And all because she'd done what anyone should do with a lost wallet. And yet the test, the manipulation stuck under her skin. Could she really work for someone who thought that way? Her phone buzzed. Despite the cracks, the screen clearly displayed her mother's name. Emma slipped into a small park, found an empty bench and answered. Mom. Emma, honey. Her mother's voice was thinner than Emma remembered. How did the interviews go? 3 rejections so far, Emma admitted. 1 more tomorrow at the Bluebird Diner. Oh, sweetheart. Disappointment and forced optimism mingled in her tone. Something will come through. Actually, Emma hesitated. How did you explain, accidentally got offered a $90,000 job by a billionaire, without sounding delusional? There might be another opportunity. Something unexpected. That's wonderful, her mother said immediately. What kind of job? An executive assistant position. For the CEO of a big company. Emma watched office workers hurry past with steaming coffee and determined faces. Emma, that's amazing, her mother said. How on earth did you manage that? I thought you were applying to restaurants. It's complicated. Emma sighed. Mom, how are you feeling? An all too long pause. I'm managing, sweetheart. The new medication helps with the pain most days. Which meant the pain was always there, sometimes slightly dulled. Emma closed her eyes. If her mother had better insurance, better specialists, better options. Listen, Emma said quietly. I might have some good news soon. About helping with your medical bills. Emma Carter, her mother scolded gently. Don't you start worrying about me. Your job is to build your own life, not take care of your old mother. You're not old, Emma said. And we take care of each other. That's what family does. They talked a little longer. When the call ended, Emma stared down at the phone in her hand. Pride wouldn't pay for treatments. Principles wouldn't keep the lights on. She pulled out Patricia's card and dialed the number scrawled on the back. Reed. Came the voice on the second ring. Mr. Reed, Emma said, surprised at how steady she sounded. I'll take the job. Excellent. He actually sounded pleased. Can you start tomorrow? Patricia will handle the paperwork and orientation. Tomorrow. She hadn't expected it to move so fast. Yes. I can. Good. 8 a.m. sharp. And Miss Carter. He paused. I meant what I said about your photography. We'll discuss it tomorrow. The line clicked off before she could reply. The next morning, Emma stood outside Reed Innovations at 7:45 in the nicest outfit she owned. A simple black second-hand dress and sensible flats. She'd spent half the night swinging between excitement and nerves. Patricia met her in the lobby, expression as composed as ever. She handed Emma a temporary badge. Welcome to Reed Innovations, Miss Carter. We'll start with your employment forms, then orientation. The morning blurred into a flurry of paperwork, policies, and introductions. Reed Innovations spanned 60 floors and more than 500 employees. Patricia seemed determined that Emma would understand the organizational chart by lunch. By noon, Emma's head buzzed with names and protocols. Mr. Reed is in a board meeting, Patricia said, leading her to a small office adjacent to his. This will be your workspace. You'll manage his schedule, coordinate meetings, handle correspondence, and prevent unnecessary interruptions. The office was compact but elegant. A sleek desk, ergonomic chair, state-of-the-art computer. A large window offered a sweeping view, if not quite as dramatic as Alexander's. This is mine, Emma asked, fingertips grazing the polished surface. For as long as you work here, Patricia said. Now, Mr. Reed's preferences. What followed was an exhaustive list. Black coffee only, lunch at exactly 1, unless meetings intervened, no calls before 9 or after 6, briefing documents prepared 24 hours in advance, no walk-ins unless pre-cleared by Patricia. He's particular, Patricia concluded, but fair. He rewards competence and loyalty. How long have you worked for him? Emma asked. 15 years. Since he founded the company. There was pride in her voice. I've watched Reed Innovations grow from 10 employees to this. She checked her watch. His meeting should be ending. He wants to see you at 2. At precisely 2, Emma was ushered back into the corner office. Alexander sat behind his desk, scanning a document. He motioned for her to sit without looking up. One moment, Miss Carter. She waited, taking the chance to study him. Watching him work was like watching a machine, precise, efficient, every movement purposeful. At last he set the papers aside and looked at her. How was your morning? Informative, she said truthfully. Ms. Winters is very thorough. Patricia is invaluable, he agreed. Learn everything you can from her. He opened a drawer, drew out a rectangular box, and slid it across the desk. Now, he said, about your photography. Open it. Emma lifted the lid. Inside lay a professional-grade digital camera, the kind she'd once spent hours reading about, the kind far beyond anything she'd ever been able to afford. Mr. Reed, I can't accept this, she protested. It's a business expense, he interrupted. Part of your role will be documenting certain company events and projects. You'll need proper equipment. Emma frowned slightly. I never told Ms. Winters about my photography. You didn't, he said. Did you think I wouldn't research you after our meeting? He recited like a report. Emma Carter, 21. Top of your class at Oak Ridge High School in Lima, Ohio. State Youth Photography Contest winner 3 years running. Accepted to the Rhode Island School of Design, but unable to attend for financial reasons. He paused. Your art teacher didn't just say you had an eye for composition, he added. She wrote that you were the most naturally gifted photographer she'd seen in 30 years. Emma sat frozen, shock warring with discomfort at how thoroughly he'd dug into her past. Why go to such lengths? She asked. I'm just your assistant. I never make uninformed decisions about who joins my organization, he said. Your talent was being wasted. Now it won't be. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and frowned. I need to take this, he said. We'll continue later. For now, learn that camera. You'll use it at the charity gala this weekend. Charity gala? Emma echoed. Patricia has the details, he said, already reaching for the phone. Out in the hall, Patricia was waiting with a thick folder. He told you about the gala? She asked. Emma nodded, still clutching the camera box. What exactly does he expect me to do? Document the event, Patricia said. It's the Reed Foundation's annual fundraiser. Very exclusive. Very important to Mr. Reed. She handed over the folder. Guest list, schedule, background. You'll also need suitable attire. The company has an account at Bergdorf's. I'll take you tomorrow. Emma glanced down at her plain black dress. I'm guessing this won't cut it. For the first time, Patricia's expression softened slightly. Not for the Pierre, no. As they walked back toward their offices, Emma ventured. You said yesterday Mr. Reed has been different since I brought back his wallet? Something unreadable flickered across Patricia's face. More like his old self, she said finally. Then, as if realizing she'd said too much, she cut herself off. It's not my place to elaborate. Just know he doesn't extend trust lightly. Don't give him reason to regret it. Then she was back behind her desk, leaving Emma with a camera, a gala assignment, and a growing sense that there was far more to Alexander Reed than his public persona. The Reed Foundation's annual gala took place in the grand ballroom of the Pierre, overlooking Central Park. Emma arrived early as instructed, wearing a midnight blue gown from Bergdorf's that cost more than 6 months of her usual rent. The camera hung comfortably from her neck, familiar despite the months she'd gone without one. This year's gala theme was funding medical research for rare diseases. All proceeds would go toward a new initiative. As Emma watched guests arrive in couture and diamonds, she thought of her mother, of days when the rare nature of her illness felt less like a medical term and more like a sentence. There you are. She turned. Alexander approached in a perfectly cut tuxedo, his usual severity edged with something gentler for the occasion. That color suits you, he said. Thank you, she managed, suddenly very aware of the dress, the borrowed glamour, the camera that felt like the only real part of the ensemble. The ballroom looks beautiful. He scanned the room with a practiced eye. Are you comfortable with the camera settings? The lighting here can be tricky. I've adjusted for it, she said. She'd spent hours the previous night refreshing techniques, determined not to fail. Good. Focus on interactions between donors and the research team, he said. Those shots are valuable for future campaigns. He checked his watch. I need to greet some key supporters. Carry on. As he moved away, Emma lifted the camera to her eye and felt something click into place. The world narrowed to angles and light, expressions and moments. She slipped through the crowd, unobtrusive, capturing laughter, attentive faces, spontaneous gestures. About an hour in, while photographing a group of researchers explaining their work, she overheard a snippet of conversation behind her. He's looking better tonight, a silver-haired man remarked. More like himself. Not the automaton he's been since Sarah died. 2 years now, isn't it? His companion replied. Tragic. I never thought he'd recover, especially after what happened with Julia. They moved on before Emma could hear more. Sarah, Julia, automaton. Pieces of Patricia's earlier hints slid into place. Later, Emma framed a shot of Alexander speaking with an elegant woman in her 50s. The woman clasped his arm with familiar affection. Alexander, darling, the foundation is doing remarkable work, she said warmly. Sarah would be so proud. A shadow crossed his eyes, visible through the camera's zoom. Thank you, Eleanor, he replied. That means a great deal. And how are you really? She pressed. We do worry, you know. Especially after that dreadful business with Julia. I'm fine, he said stiffly. If you'll excuse me, I believe the head of neurology needs me. As he walked away, Eleanor shook her head and murmured to the person beside her. Still can't talk about it. Poor Alex. First his wife, then betrayed by his fiancé and his oldest friend in one blow. Emma lowered the camera heart tight. Wife, fiancé, oldest friend, betrayal. Suddenly the wallet test and his talk of disappointment in people made brutal sense. The evening rolled on. Alexander gave a powerful speech about the Foundation's mission, about turning personal loss into progress. His words brought in millions in additional pledges. Watching him through her lens, Emma saw what others saw. Charisma, intelligence, resolve. She also saw what most probably missed. The slight tightness around his mouth, the way his gaze drifted just once toward a photo of Sarah displayed near the stage. Near midnight, as guests began to drift away, Emma found a quiet corner to scroll through the shots. She was reviewing an image when someone stepped beside her. May I? Alexander asked, voice softer than usual. Emma handed over the camera. He flipped through the photos, studying each with focused attention. These are exceptional, he said finally. You have real talent, Miss Carter. Thank you, she said. She hesitated, then decided to risk it. Mr. Reed, may I ask you something personal? His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That depends. I overheard people talking about someone named Sarah. And about a betrayal. She met his eyes. Is that why you tested people with your wallet? Because you lost your wife, and then people you trusted betrayed you. He was silent so long she thought he'd refuse to answer. Sarah was my wife, he said at last, voice controlled. She died 2 years ago from a rare autoimmune condition. The same type we're funding research for tonight. He looked out over the thinning crowd. 8 months ago, I got engaged to Julia, Sarah's oncologist. She was brilliant, compassionate, or so I believed. His mouth hardened. I discovered she and my CFO, my friend of 15 years, were embezzling from the foundation, using money meant for research to fund their affair and their lifestyle. Emma's stomach turned. I'm so sorry. The personal betrayal was one thing, he said quietly. The professional damage was another. Their actions set our research back considerably. No wonder he'd come to see people as potential threats. And if I hadn't returned the wallet? Emma asked. If I'd kept the money? Then you wouldn't be here, he said simply. But you did return it. And then you did something even more unexpected. You walked away from my job offer because you disagreed with my methods, he said. You told me I was wrong. That's rarer than honesty itself. He smiled, a small genuine curve of his lips. The foundation needs people like you, he said. I need people like you. The admission startled her. The stern, unflappable CEO had cracks after all. Real ones. The foundation is important to you because of Sarah, she said softly. That's why tonight matters. He nodded once. Before she died, I promised her her suffering wouldn't be meaningless. That I'd do what I could to make sure others didn't go through the same. It's a beautiful way to honor her, Emma said. Something in his expression gentled. You remind me of her sometimes, he said. The directness. The unwillingness to be impressed by wealth. Emma didn't know what to say to that. Before she could answer, Patricia appeared. Alexander, the Goldsteins are leaving. They wanted to say good night. He inclined his head. Excuse me, Miss Carter. We'll talk more another time. Weeks turned into months. Emma settled into her role at Reed Innovations. The hours were long, the expectations high, but the work was strangely satisfying. True to his word, Alexander carved out space for her photography. She documented company projects, charity initiatives, and behind-the-scenes moments for the foundation's campaigns. Her first paycheck paid for her mother's move to New York and admission to a specialized clinic, one funded in part by the Reed Foundation. The change in her mother's care, and in her outlook, was immediate and humbling. Emma learned more about Alexander too. His brilliance, his relentless drive, his uncompromising standards, but also his loyalty to those who earned his trust, and his generosity when he believed in a cause, or a person. At some point, Mr. Reed became Alexander in her thoughts, if not always aloud. 6 months after she'd almost stepped over his wallet on a rainy sidewalk, Emma sat across from him in his office, reviewing plans for an upcoming foundation event. They'd fallen into an easy rhythm, her straightforward practicality balancing his analytical precision. Emma, he said suddenly, setting aside the documents, I've been meaning to tell you something. She looked up, sensing the shift. What is it? The wallet wasn't entirely a test, he said. It was also an experiment in fate. I don't follow, she said. After Julia's betrayal, I lost faith, he said quietly. Not just in people, but in the idea that anything good could still find its way into my life. He met her gaze directly. The day I left that wallet on the sidewalk, I told myself that if someone returned it intact, maybe there was still reason to hope. Emma felt a flutter low in her chest. And did finding me restore that hope? More than that, he said, voice low. It changed everything. The words hung between them, heavy with possibilities neither of them named. Emma thought of the path from that rainy morning to this office, from counting coins for rent to sending checks to her mother's clinic, from a cracked phone camera to professional gear, from rejecting his worldview to helping reshape it. I'm glad I picked it up, she said simply, even if I still don't approve of your methods. He laughed, the sound no longer rare in her presence. You never let me off easy, do you? Someone has to keep you honest, she said. His smile faded into something more thoughtful. I've been considering the foundation's next phase. With your eye for human stories, you could do more than document events. You could show the world the faces behind the research. The lives changed. A more permanent role with the foundation? Emma asked. If you're interested, he said. Your salary would increase accordingly. Emma sat back, absorbing it. 6 months had turned her life inside out. Her mother was improving. She had a career that used the talent she'd once given up on. She'd found purpose in work that mattered. And in the company of a man she never could have imagined knowing. A man who had been, at first, an intimidating figure behind a desk, then a demanding boss, then a complicated, wounded human being revealing unexpected depths. I'd like that, she said at last. On one condition. One of his eyebrows lifted. amusement ghosting at his mouth. "And what would that be, Miss Carter?" "That you never test me again," she said. "No more planted wallets. No more secret experiments in fate. Just honesty between us. Always." He considered her words, then nodded slowly. "I believe I can agree to those terms," he said. He extended his hand across the desk. "Partners." Emma slipped her hand into his. His grip was warm and steady. "Partners," she said. Their hands lingered a moment longer than necessary. As they finally let go, Emma realized the wallet on the sidewalk had been more than a test of her integrity. It had been a test of possibility, of whether life still had room for second chances, for unlikely connections, for new futures born out of old wounds. In their own ways they had both passed.